You can tell what's up, FA Nation. This is Caught Stealing. I'm back. I had a week off. Uh, you can tell I'm a little rusty here. Also, you can also tell Colby's not here. He's traveling this week. So we've brought in our super sub, the guy who comes in all the time. He's like Andrew Miller for the. We got to go back to the Indians days. I know they're the Guardians, but they were the Indians when Andrew Miller was a beast for them in multi situations. What's going on there, Grande?
Nothing much. I prefer like Scott Proctor when he
Oh,
was
yes,
pitching for the Yankees and he had
for
like
the Yankees.
100 appearances under Torrey. Like there
Yes,
is no such thing as like I mean if there was a game within a couple runs, even if it was the fifth straight day, Scott Proctor was getting it out for Joe Torre
yep.
back in the day. So I loved Andrew Miller. Salute to Andrew Miller, great relief pitcher, but I feel more Proctorish, but I'm doing well. The fantasy baseball season, like
It's got twists and
it
turns, man.
never doesn't get like nail biting because you can have the best team for X amount of months and you're still like, oh man, I just hope my team doesn't go into a slump. Oh man, like what if my
Yeah,
pitching, but oh man, what if like I have injury, like, and then everything can crash and burn so fast, especially when you're in like points leagues and categories and stuff. So,
yeah.
you have to just like you cannot be stagnant in fantasy sports in general, and I'd say in baseball with how long it is, like there's nothing more important than just like making like being fluid on the waiver wire and being fluid in your ad drops and like just so it's a grind, man. And we love the grind and that's why we do it. But when you get to this point in the year, it's about to be the middle of August, you're like, man, this you can reflect a little bit, be like, wow, it's been a long season. I've made 750 moves and I'm still in sixth place in this league. So it's been fun, and thanks for having me as always.
Yeah, we have a league. We're in a league together. Moves come in every Sunday night. You and I are always chatting. Who we had in this week? I feel like we've made a move every week except for maybe four
Yep.
this year.
Yep.
Um, whether it be for free pickups on Monday morning who slipped through the waivers or whatnot. Um, and in my home league, my 17 team home league, I've been in I think every position except for first and 17th this year at some point or another.
Oh my god.
It's been insane. I've never seen a year in which, and we're talking all the way up to like I've moved three positions this week,
Sure.
which usually doesn't happen in this league. Usually you're the standings are so spread out that you may get a little closer, but you're not making like runs at positions at this point. It's not happening this year. It's been a crazy year. I'm excited. I just get Drew Rasmussen finally comes back, so I get
Okay.
some pitching depth, which is great because Ronaldo Lopez is on the IL, which isn't great because he's been
Right.
spectacular
Yes.
this year. Um, but moving a little further north there on I-95, we're going to Baltimore, and Grayson Rodriguez has landed on the IL in the warm ups. People caught him on video saying, "I don't feel right" during warm ups, which great for him. Be cognizant of not feeling right. So they scratched him, and now he's landed on the IL with, I believe it's a right teres
Yeah,
or lat
lat
issue,
terrace. Yep.
which I think is what kept him out of game action last year at AAA, if I remember
22 in
correctly.
22 in
Or in
22.
22, yeah. Um, so that's a bit concerning that it's a repeat of a muscle injury. Um, it's also concerning because he missed a decent amount of time with that injury back
Yes.
in 2022. Already, the O's weren't terribly strong in starting pitching to start with. How concerned are you about Gray Rod right now?
Very highly, extremely. Um Anything else?
Now
I mean
it looks
it's
like he could miss some serious time here.
yeah, it's definitely concerning. The time frame that you alluded to was 3.5 months was how
Yeah,
many
he doesn't have that much season left.
no. So, and obviously, like every thing is case. Like that may not be what happens here, but it was weird to begin with yesterday, right? He was
Right.
scratched about 2 minutes prior to the start,
I mean, it was
and I
literally he was warming up in that cavernous
right,
left field and
yep,
said, "I don't feel right."
yep, and so like right then and there, we've already seen shoulder issue. The shoulder issue was this year. He
Right.
had the lat in 22, and now he has the lat in 24. Second stint on the IL this year. I mean, like, until we know more, he's obviously not going anywhere. He's just moving to your IL, and you're making room for him on the IL.
Right.
But there's obviously the caveat that if this is a lengthy issue, then we're moving on for the rest of the year. Like, obviously, he's a potential keeper moving forward. This is a highly talented pitching prospect. So like you're going to keep him on your roster in keeper formats, but in any redraft leagues, he's on your IL until we know more. But this is not good considering it's a previous injury that he has dealt with, and it's now the second time this year he's spent time on the IL. And just like we've seen this, I think with pitchers that are young, there's going to be because the Orioles have pitching depth, because they obviously made deals at the deadline. Not to say they haven't lost a lot this year, because they obviously have. They lost 3 starting pitchers already. This is number 4. Dating Bradish, Wells, and Means have all been lost.
Yeah, and those are all the mid to top rotation starters.
Yeah, Wells was
Wells was
second in
great.
ERA. Yeah, he was second in the ERA last year in the American League. So
Yeah, I
like,
picked him up for free in my home league at the very end of my draft. So I was same
well,
way as
like
Ronaldo Lopez this year. So I'm apparently very good at the end of
the
draft.
end of
Getting
drafts.
good picks.
Yeah. This year in our FSGA league, Chris Sale, salute to you, and a little
Yep.
earlier than I think most people would have drafted him, but your conviction was there. But like he's young, and they're not going to rush him back
Correct.
before and then have something happen just because they're making a run in the postseason. So it's a on like the scale of concern, it's red. I'm in the like I'm flickering over to red. So I don't know how if you feel the same, but it's concerning.
I am that way in redrafts, in keepers and dynasty. This doesn't affect next year.
Yeah.
If you're competing this year in those formats, it does obviously eat into your ability to compete because unless it's a minor, unless it's not as serious as it was in 2022, there's a chance that he misses less time. But
Yep.
even if he's missing a month, that's basically the rest of the regular season, right?
Right.
Because at that point, he's going to need some simulated games, some rehab work, maybe come back as a reliever just to get some innings. I mean, we're recording this on August 7th, so a month from now is September 7th. You got like 3 weeks left in the regular season, if that. So
Yeah. How many starts is he even making? How many starts is he even making at that point?
yeah, maybe 2.
And full capacity
Right.
starts.
And it's not like 2 starts at the very end of the season is going to swing. I mean, if you're that close in ratios or strikeouts or wins, there was somewhere else you could have found those than 2 gray rat starts. Um, Going up, we're sticking on 95. We're just going all the way up. 95 in the AL East. Not all the way up to Toronto, but we're going to Boston. Tyler O'Neill has landed on the IL with what's being deemed as a calf infection. Now, I believe he also had a knee thing going on too that he was kind of nursing, and then they found a calf infection. This is an infection, so at least you can take some meds for it. But the hope is he doesn't miss that much time. But if the meds don't do what they're supposed to do, then it could take longer. And he's a huge bat in the middle of that lineup. Huge bat.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's seemingly, at least from Alex Cora's perspective, going to be a minimum stint on the IL. which is always good because Tyler O'Neill has obviously spent a lot of time in the IL throughout his career. So anytime you start talking Tyler O'Neill and it's not minimum stint, it's concerning. But he's had a couple stints already that have ended in the minimum say, and then he's been back. So I assume that's the case here, unless we hear otherwise.
Yes.
And he's needed in fantasy baseball leagues. He is like you said, he is a big time power bat with 30 home run upside.
Yeah, he
Um,
hit I think 290 in June with 5 homers, and then 306 in July with 6 homers.
yeah,
So
and he plays in such a favorable offensive park. It's
and
very
division, to be honest.
end division. So
The
um,
only thing not favorable offensively in that division is left field at Camden Yards. Everything else is
true,
favorable offensively.
true, true, and that's yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm not all too worried here. Short term, there's players you can pick up on the waiver wire. First one that comes to my mind is like Victor Robles. If you wanted to, he's available in a ton of leagues and like
He's been really good for Seattle.
hitting right at the top of the lineup. So that would probably be the first direction I'd go. Obviously, there's others, but short term solution needed for Tyler O'Neill, who will be back soon.
Yeah. They also have some pitching. They made a lot of moves today. It was hard to keep track of. They're skipping one of their starters the next time through because of arm fatigue.
Is it Bayo?
I don't believe so. Who are they skipping? I saw there was like a ridiculous amount of moves that they made today. They're not
Let's
putting them on the
see.
IL. Pavetta.
Crawford, how? Yeah, it's Pavetta. Yeah, they're skipping
They're
Pavetta
skipping
here.
him for arm fatigue. He's not on the IL, but dead arm at this point in the season is a little.
He's slated to pitch the 13th. Is where Fangraphs look to Fangraphs on their probables page. He's projected the Monday or Tuesday the 13th. So we'll see if he makes that start or if his arm's feeling better.
Yeah, but hey, they got Big Maple filling in for him.
Hate me.
Right.
Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah. Um, the only real fantasy asset left in with the Angels is now out for the year as well. Not talking about Mike Trout, who is out for the year. Luis Rengifo is now out for the year. That kind of stings because the guy was really quite good this year, and he had a bunch of position eligibility. So at this point, how are we kind of filling in for him? I know the numbers weren't spectacular, but the versatility he offered um, definitely hurts to lose at this point.
Yeah, you're speaking from a personal place here because you and I have him
Yes.
obviously penciled in. I mean, in competitive leagues, there's obviously already been a bunch of added, like these players have been added, but like if you're in ESPN formats, I think you can probably still get away. I saw Xavier Edwards is still available in over 50% of leagues. If Jackson Holiday, he's still available in over 50% of ESPN leagues, even though he homered again on.
And you're going to
Um,
miss at bats when bases are loaded.
and you, we don't need to get into that one. That one's go to John
I'm
and
putting the
Pemba's
guy
timeline.
who's hitting below 200 against lefties.
Yeah. So I mean,
God.
it's tough because you nailed it. Like there are not many players that have as many eligibilities as Rengifo. I mean, he
I mean,
only
this year he's played 31 games at second. He's played 48 games at third. He's played 2 at short. He's played what is it, 10, 15 in the outfield? Or only one? No, sorry, only one in the outfield. Apologies.
still has outfield on RT Sports. Still had outfield eligibility too, and
Yeah,
and I know a lot
depending
of
on your
formats.
league, it may have carried over. Like if they had it last year, they likely didn't lose it unless your team is medieval and
Right.
gets rid of it. So you would have had second, third, probably short because he played 37 games there last year, and outfield. That's like everywhere except for catcher
Yep.
and first that he fits.
Yep.
So again, the numbers weren't spectacular in terms of power, but 24 steals and a 300 average for a guy who plays basically every day, that's going to sting.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a tough loss, and he's not going to be the last player from a really bad team to get shut down. Unfortunately, just the reality of the way
I
sports
mean, some
work.
teams have already shut down everybody. Talking about you
Sure.
there, Marlins.
Yeah. But yeah, the Rengifo loss hurts. But again, if you're playing in some formats where there are still like if you're in need of a shortstop, uh, Tyler Fitzgerald, his Jeremy Lin run has somewhat came to an end, but he's only 40% rostered in ESPN leagues. Jake Berger has 50,000 home runs. If you're
He
looking
just hit two
for
more. He just hit two more
yeah, if
today.
you're looking for like a third base fill in for right, so there are plenty of options, but Brandon Lau is someone 12% rostered on ESPN. He has been the Brandon Lau of a couple years ago when he had 39 home runs. If you're looking for a second baseman, so there are some waiver wire ads out there that you can still get to. Obviously, like sharper formats, you're not going to get any of those guys, but in your traditional home league, like all those players should be available.
Yeah. So you're gonna kind of have to, make it in the aggregate, as the A's Billy Bean said in Moneyball.
Just watch that. Just watch my wife and I just watched that last weekend. She had never seen it, so I made her sit down and watch it.
I saw it opening weekend in the theaters by myself because nobody else wanted to go with me. So I just went, sat in a recliner in an AMC theater.
I respect that. I respect that move so much.
It was fantastic. It was best way to watch a movie, by the way, if you want to see it, is to go by. You don't have to. Nobody's talking to you. You don't have to deal with anybody else's cell phones. Like, plus it's cheap because you don't have to buy a second ticket or.
No second ticket. Yep, that's the one.
Um, here's we're gonna talk about Erod here, Eduardo Rodriguez, who has finally made his return for the Diamondbacks. He pitched earlier today. Again, we're recording on Wednesday the 7th. Mainly due to Grande, who's about to risk floodwaters here on Thursday as the storm comes rolling through South Carolina. So hope you all stay safe. Anybody in the southeast is safe this weekend. But the thanks to some inclement weather earlier in the week, the Diamondbacks and Guardians played a doubleheader on Wednesday. Erod made his debut in Game 2. It was a solid return. It wasn't spectacular. 5 2/3, got the win, spread 4 hits, did give up 3 earned, only struck out one guy, but that's fine for a guy who's just coming back from literally missing 2/3 of the season with a lat issue from spring training. So the rest of the way, what are you expecting to and hoping to see from Erod?
I mean, I think he is a viable ad. I mean, one, he's obviously if you're still looking for if you're in a league that weighs wins in category formats, like he's obviously and his team is 11 games over 500 and streaking, right? So there's a lot of win equity built in with Erod. He does typically pitch deep into games. I mean, today, if throwing 65 pitches, he pitched pretty deep, much deeper than I think anyone anticipated he would in 65 pitches. The last 2 years, I would say the strikeouts have kind of evaded him, where your final 4 seasons in Boston, he was well over a strikeout per inning. And his last two, he wasn't, right? I mean, that first season in Detroit, not even close. Last season, he was close, but not like fully there. And obviously, I mean, he was 2 strikeouts per K9 lower than he was in 21, right? So that's where I think you're not going to make up ground, but he win equity built in, quality starts built in, and he's just like a solid pitcher. So his ratios are more likely to help you than they're going to hurt you. Doesn't walk too many. He's kind of figured that out. But yeah, I mean, he's a middle to back end rotation for fantasy formats moving forward.
Yeah,
Just
like if
don't
you just
expect a lot of
lost
strikeouts.
Gray Rod and you need innings,
Yeah, it's a good.
Erod's a pretty good. I mean, you're just
That's a good
moving
one.
up the alphabet with the same last name. Um, you're gonna miss out on the strikeouts from Gray Rod.
Yeah, for sure.
But pretty close to same win equity. He's pitching in a reasonable pitcher's park in Arizona. Um, you may not want him to face the Dodgers, who are still pissed that they couldn't get him at the trade deadline last year. Um, so so there is that. Um, but yeah, I would say the same. He's if you need some innings and you need a dependable arm, Erod's probably the guy I'm looking at. Um, now we alluded to it at the beginning of the pod. Colby is traveling. He is traveling to the Fantasy Football Expo, which is, from what I hear, a great event. I've never been. I see a bunch of my friends and colleagues going. Um, he is one of the guys going. He's drafting a fantasy football team there in the Hall of Fame, the Kings Classic League. So with that, we've got clearly fantasy football is kicking off. We're not about to open a fantasy football discussion. But what we are going to talk about is how your fantasy baseball strategy the rest of the way plays out when your league mates may have turned their attention to fantasy football and are begging for the fantasy baseball league to end in August so that they can focus on fantasy football because they can't multitask. So, how is your fantasy baseball strategy changing for the next 6-7 weeks?
I mean, I think nothing necessarily changes, but I do think that you'll see your waiver wire and you'll see your just ad drops availability kind of like surprising because teams that are not in it most likely check
Mm-hmm.
out by now, or have already checked out as August happens. You're kind of looking at your teams and you're like, didn't get anything in the deadline, didn't make like it. So I would say just attacking, if you don't get who you want on waiver wires, attacking your ad drops even more because, um, you know, there's a lot of situations where you've already burnt your fab by this point,
Or you're pretty
or
close. Yeah.
most of your fab. Yeah,
I know we
because
are
like you're so
in our league.
active. Yeah, I mean, well, that's
Correct.
because we've been so active all season, and I don't think that changes. I do think the way you bid on players will change because it's not just you with fab problems; it's everybody. So make sure you just continue to do what you've done all year to improve your team, and I think it will just get easier on the after your initial run of waivers. You'll get way more players just sitting there like, oh, this guy probably should have been bid on by everyone, and he's not. So let me just scoop him up. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously many more people just exiting fantasy baseball because their position, the length, the oh wait, I have to pay attention to this, I forgot type mentality. So as long as you stay consistent, I think there shouldn't be any issues with continuing your ascent
I
up
would
the.
also say, from a keeper and dynasty perspective, first of all, if you're in a dynasty league and people are checking out in August, you need to get a better dynasty league because dynasty
Agreed.
leagues are
Agreed.
there for the long haul. That's the point of a dynasty league. Um, Keeper leagues, though, like my home league is a keeper league, a little bit different format, so I can't use it exactly the same way. But if prospects are available and you pick them up by the end of your keeper deadline, so they're on your roster and you can carry them over, this is the time to go prospect hunting. For example,
Mhm.
last week I just dropped a brand new top 400 prospect rankings on Fantasy Alarm. Has everybody who got traded changed rankings. It's got everybody who got, well, not everybody, but the top prospects from the draft got added in there. New top prospect um, overall. And then this week for the prospect report, I highlighted some guys who were new to the top 100 because a lot of people don't pay attention to anybody outside of the top 100 for whatever reason. So there's plenty of guys who just moved up into the top 100. If those guys are still available in your league and you can go pick them up and you can get them on your roster now, and then when the draft comes around next year, people are like, ooh, that's the hot prospect to know about. And they're already on your roster, that's a win. That's how you win continuously in keeper leagues, is you pounce on prospects when everybody else stops paying attention, right? So this is the time to go get them. I scooped up guys last year in my dynasty league who got added to the system before people realized it, and I picked them up, and now I have them. And they were a little bit bitter about it in the draft, but you know what? That's how I'm going to win with two dudes named Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz. So, yeah, they were very salty about that in the draft. A
Subtle
little bit.
flex, no
I
big
also
deal.
have Brock Wilken, who's pretty good. Chase Dollander's pretty good too. He's one of the guys I just wrote up today. Um. Anyway, so that would be how my strategy would change is if people check out and you're still, for redrafts, it doesn't much matter because it's not a 40-man roster in September
No,
anymore. It's a 28-man roster. So prospects coming up now aren't
right.
going to impact your guys unless it's Dylan Cruz for the Nats. Um, but in keeper leagues, this is the time you go prospect hunting to extend your window. But we're gonna wrap this up here with
Agreed.
some waiver wire picks, guys who will help you right now that you can go pick up. Um, and one of the other strategies, you kind of can go hunt saves this time of year because there's some teams that are experimenting with closer situations. I'll lead off with my waiver
Yep.
wire pick, Justin Martinez for the Diamondbacks. He's gotten a couple of saves in the last week. They have a closer by committee situation going, closer by feeling situation going. Uh, I don't know. Paul Sewald's been removed from the closer role there. We thought it was Ryan Thompson who was going to get the saves. He got one, and then he's been taken out in the eighth inning twice. Justin Martinez, who throws absolutely filthy stuff. I saw him live 2 out of 3 days in Chicago. Stuff is gross. It's like 102, and it's a frisbee, and it misses a lot of bats. He's gotten a couple of saves, so if he's still available, which he is in a lot of Fantrax leagues, you go pick him up. You can go make some hay and saves. That's my waiver wire this week. James, who's yours?
Yeah, I like the Martinez call because they're trying to figure out their closer,
And they play
and it
so many
is
close
so
games.
open.
Like
So many close games, and they win, and
yes,
they're ahead a lot. So, and like if you're in a safe hold
yes.
league too,
There's
I
like four
don't even
dudes
think
in the
that's a bad idea.
Diamondbacks bullpen who can get you holds.
Yeah, I mean Puck, Thompson, Martinez, and on a
Sewald's
smaller
still
scale,
alive.
Seawald's still and Ginkle. I mean they have a
Same with
lot.
Floro they just
So,
picked up.
um, yeah, I'm gonna go Luis Garcia Jr. That hits home for you, Washington
He's been
National
way
second
better this year
baseman.
than I think anybody thought he
He
would be.
Yeah, he's been great. He's actually been one of the more popular added players on ESPN recently. Still 27% rostered, so he's available in over 70% of ESPN leagues. And you look at Luis Garcia like stacked up against most second basemen, and he's basically top 10 in home runs. He is top 10 in stolen bases, which obviously two categories you look at and you're like, wow, I could check off both those with one second base box. And Luis Garcia is going to end up 2020. And there's an outside chance he ends up maybe 2030 if he has a big stolen base. He'll probably end up somewhere close to
Love him.
2025 is probably where he'll end up. He's at 50 runs, he's at or 40 runs, he's at 50 RBIs too. I mean, there's an outside chance Luis Garcia gives you 60 runs, 70 ribbies, and is a 2020
By the
guy
way,
at
also
second
hitting
base. And you just
289.
don't get that while nearly
Yeah.
hitting 300 on the year. So I'm really interested in Luis Garcia on the market. My other pickup was the aforementioned Brandon Lau, another second baseman. I like the value of second base has just gone. So other than like Ketel Marte, there's just like no good second base value on the board. and Brandon Lau and Luis Garcia Jr. are just so available in
he's having an absolute career year, and I don't think anybody saw that coming. Considering the fact that Davey had to talk to him about 17 times in spring training about how to act like an adult and a mature baseball player. He's apparently figured it out, and his age 24 season is turning into a pretty good one. For streamers this week, there's a lot of TBDs out there, but we found you a couple of guys that we can look at for streamers. David Festa, you can also roster this guy. He's a streamer right now, but if you need an arm, David Festa's available. I know that the ERA says 5.55. That's usually a pretty good pizza deal and not a good ERA. But that's because he got hammered in his first two outings. Since then, over 14 and a third innings, he's given up 3 earned, which, by the way, is a 1.88 ERA. He's also struck out 22 dudes in the last 14 innings. He's been on the mound, only walked 5. He's sorted out the home run concerns. Facing Cleveland, Cleveland's offense is kind of right now. They're not great.
Yes.
They're not terrible.
Against righties. They're bad against righties right now.
They don't strike out a ton, but they also don't do a ton of damage when they make contact. So he's a pretty decent streamer. If you want to roster him too, that's perfectly fine. He's available. He's only rostered in like 40% of Fantrax leagues. So he's out there. He's in the Twins rotation. They're making a run for the playoffs. He's going to stay there.
Yeah, I like the strikeout upside for Festa. And been profiled like every step of his minor league career.
I also wrote up that guy too.
He just strikes.
He's been
yeah, he strikes a lot of people out. Yeah, he misses a lot of bats. So yeah, all those peripheral, like all the secondary xFIP and all that stuff suggests he was just a little bit unlucky in his first few outings.
And a 3.36 xFIP.
It's crazy, dude.
Less. Yeah.
Salute to Fangraphs. You can always tell when there's going to be some regression or positive regression, right? You can always tell, unless there's luck on your side. And Dave Festa, the festival is beginning and the luck is turning for him. I got 2 here. Saturday we'll go with Sean Manaea against Seattle. I know Seattle's offense has obviously been better. They have gotten healthier. They have made some interesting moves. I mean, the Robles move was obviously unbelievably lucky because he is having the best stage of his career.
Well, except for 2019,
Jorge Polanco,
where he was ridiculous.
He was good. Yeah, he was good.
Years ago,
anything pre-COVID is just such a long time ago. I'll just throw that out there. They got Polanco back. He's actually been good. Yeah, Turner. So it's obviously a little better, but this start is being made in Seattle. So obviously, like, balls just die in Seattle. It's very hard to hit in Seattle. You look at every Seattle pitcher and you look at that ballpark, just bottom 2. I think they're actually the fewest runs per game this year in Seattle.
I'm going to call it Safeco because that's what I grew up with. Seattle's home park over the last 3 years has the lowest opponent WOBA of any ballpark in the league.
Yeah, I mean, it's like complete opposite, of course. The ball just dies. And Sean Manaea, for as good as people thought he'd be early stages of his career, and then like the kind of disappointing up and down nature of his career, has really, really turned it around this year. 3.3 ERA, over a strikeout per inning, 8-4 for the Mets in age 32 season. He has pitched extremely well, and that hasn't stopped. It's been better in the second half of the year. 2.66 ERA so far since the All-Star break. Again, well over a strikeout per inning, 26.5% strikeout rate over that span. And we know that's what Seattle's MO has been, striking out a lot this year. So I like Manaea on Saturday. And then, hey, man, Hayden Birdsong, another highly coveted prospect for the Giants, another guy who has missed bats at every single level he's pitched at, and he's starting to miss bats at the major league level, which is something that he wasn't. And I think people jump on prospects backs too quickly, i.e.,
Mhm.
Jackson Holiday, Matt, who was given a basically a 30 at bat sample to be the best player of all time. And then when he didn't do that,
Yeah,
he
you
was
know who
labeled as
else
a
went
bust. And
back
now
to the
Jackson,
minors, who everybody comps to Mickey Mantle now? Mike Trout.
yeah, A Rod was like one for his first
There's a
50. I
ton
mean,
of them.
there's like
There's a
a
ton of
long
them.
list. Yeah, and now Jackson Holiday's homered in 4 straight games, and he looks to be every part the player that expected. But Hayden Birdsong, kind of like the same thing. His couple first starts didn't
Nope.
go great. He isn't coming off the best start against the Nats either. But the 2 starts prior, 12 strikeouts, 2 runs in Coors Field, 5 scoreless innings at home, 8 strikeouts against the Rockies. And now we're getting a matchup against Detroit. And although Detroit, another offense that like is slowly getting healthier, and potentially could get healthier like going into next week, they've been one of the worst teams against right-handed pitching all year and lately especially. So I really like Mania on Saturday. I really like Birdsong on Sunday. Um, I would say Birdsong is still just you keep as a streamer moving forward until he gives us a little more consistency. The strikeouts are great, the walks are not, and that's really what hurts him. The ballpark that he pitches is great. Mania is definitely someone that you could keep on your roster though, as long as um, he keeps pitching the way he's pitched. So Mania Saturday, Birdsong Sunday, and I love your I love the fact that you're going to have a
Yep,
festival
I'm
this
going with
weekend as
David
well.
Festa. So that'll wrap up this edition of Caught Stealing. We're going with David Festa, Sean Mania, Hayden Birdsong for streamers, or you could just add him. Luis Garcia is out there. He should be picked up. Frankly, I'm shocked that he's available in that many leagues. Justin Martinez for saves,
Yeah.
you can look there. Remember, if you're in keeper leagues, now's the time to pounce on prospects just to stash them for next year. Um, and you got to watch those injuries, man, because they're still coming fast and furious. We're concerned about Gray Rod. Tyler O'Neill should be okay. Erod, rest of the way should be okay. That'll wrap up this edition of Caught Stealing. We'll be back next week. I believe it'll be Colby and I, but who knows? It'll be two of the three of us, right? We'll show up. We'll talk baseball. Get you all set for the following week of the MLB season, which is quickly drawing to a close. So, with that, go ahead and give us a follow on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I'm at the Salesman, and James Grande, the hyphen king, the underscore king, I should say, is at the underscore real underscore grande there on X. You can also catch our stuff on fantasyalarm.com. Ask us questions in the Fantasy Alarm Discord. We are generally always in there answering questions. DFS, seasonal, keeper, dynasty, whatever. And we'll catch you next week.